Are there too many cooks in your PMP exam kitchen? Thank you for joining me on the webinar today. I've received quite a number of emails over the past few months regarding students who have huge problems on the PMP exam in that they've paid a lot of money for training, but they find themselves nowhere at the end of many months. And one common thread in these students' emails was the fact that they owned several pieces of project management real estate, I'll call it, tons of books, and the ability to watch various videos on their company portals. And that concerned me that after putting in so much time and effort and resources towards the PMP exam, these folks found themselves nowhere. They found themselves failing the exam. Some of them found themselves not being able to muster up enough courage to take the exam. And a number of them were second guessing themselves. Now, it took a while for me to see this common thread and for me to begin to help some of these folks fix their issues. But one of the things I told them to do immediately is to discard or put to the side any of those items that they came to me with seeking help. So my question then became, are there too many cooks in your PMP exam kitchen? If there are too many cooks in your kitchen, you're going to end up with a burnt dish, or you're going to end up with a bland dish, or you're going to end up with chaos and confusion. Except those cooks are complementary in an intentional fashion and designed or trained to be that way, you're going to run into issues. So as we go through this content, I want you to be honest, be open-minded, don't shut your mind. Ask yourself this question. This is for those folks who find themselves getting nowhere despite a lot of effort. Are there too many cooks in your PMP exam kitchen? Now, right off the bat, let me just advise you, we've got some great boot camps coming up that are live online. Go to pmsucceed.com to check those out. And go to Praizion.com if you feel you've got no time for a live boot camp. You want to do self-study, go to Praizion.com. But check out these awesome options for training. Live online in the evenings, East Coast time, is as good as it gets. We go through every piece of the knowledge areas, bit by bit, in a digestible fashion. So go to pmsucceed.com to check that out, and go to Praizion.com to check out the plethora of study aids we've got for you to study alone. I'm talking about track record. We have a great track record of getting people certified and equipping them with real-world project management understanding. How do you know there are too many cooks in your kitchen? Multiple book sources is the first sign. I've found a number of folks getting ready for the PMP exam and they bring out 5, 6, 7 books. That in and of itself is a sign to me that those folks may be headed down a wrong road, leading to disaster on the exam. Now, I don't mean to be an alarmist, but if I am, then so be it. Having so many books, obsessing over the books instead of obsessing over the content is a sign that you are headed down the wrong path. In all honesty, 2 major books should get you through the exam sufficiently. One, the PMBOK guide, and two, the study guide that you have found to be tested, tried, and true. Whatever that looks like in your world. In our world, it is Project Management Essentials. In your world, I'm unsure of what it is, but I can tell you this. Of the plethora of materials and aids for the PMP exam that are out there, very few I put up there on par with the PMBOK guide in terms of credible, tested, tried, and true. So make up your mind, but whatever you do not get into the quicksand of multiple book sources. If you're finding out that you need more and more books, then they're all probably hopeless. Stick to 2 books, your PMBOK guide, your study guide. Now, anything you also add to the mix with the study guide, hopefully can be from either the PMI in the form of maybe the Agile Practice Guide or some other source of information that is credible, tested, and tried. For example, the Agile Alliance has a great glossary for Agile. Check it out. Ken and Jeff put out a great Scrum guide. Stick to the authority, the source, the Scrum guide. You don't need to go all over the place for the PMP exam. Okay? Your PMBOK guide, your Agile Practice Guide, a couple of other sources, Agile Alliance, the Scrum Guide. Make sure it's Ken and Jeff's Scrum Guide. And if you're a Praizion student, throw in the Project Management Essentials. By the time you're collecting more than that, you are falling into the quicksand trap of multiple book sources. How do you know there are too many cooks? Secondly, multiple video sources. So by the time you're watching so many trainers in this space, you are bound to get confused and you're bound to start questioning yourself. Do I really know it? Do I really understand it? Stick to one source. Stick to your buddy Phil. Stick to your buddy Phil and head down the tunnel to where the light is. By the time you throw in so many other alternative sources and try and mix and meld all of them, there's likely to be confusion. If you found a different source you feel that works for you, that's great. But it can be hard listening to so many voices. You got to choose one, choose the most credible, stick to it, and plow down. The PMP is very fiddly. And the moment you add too many cooks to the mix, you are bound to start getting confused. Take it from me. Multiple voices of opinion are also out there on the blogs, on social media, on the numerous Facebook groups that offer little or no value to you as an individual, but offer a lot of noise, a lot of sales pitching. And that's why I tell people when they come on our system, join our study group, because we ain't going to pitch stuff to you. We're focused on answering questions and adding value, and that's it. And letting you know when there's items of interest, like webinars. But there's lots of voices of opinion about the exam, and these aren't credible sources. A lot of times you get a student that comes out of the PMP exam and they obsess over their own set of questions. So they create false alarms. Oh, this topic. Oh, this particular type of question. And then the poor people they're projecting this on, they get so muddled up and confused and worried, and they go off on a rabbit trail leading to nowhere. It's a sign of too many cooks. No authority figure. Have one trainer, one coach. Seriously. Adding too many of these is gonna send you into a downward spiral to nowhere. Now, in a company, you could have multiple coaches. They're cut from the same cloth, they espouse the same dogma, doctrine, ideas, philosophies, great. But the moment you begin to combine sources that are polarized, you're going to get confused. No singular validity check. If you realize, who can I ask? And you don't really have one point person to ask that question, it's either there's no cook or you got too many cooks, so you're confused. One sign, very clear sign of too many cooks, is asking mentors to explain strange and outlandish content. You wonder, I wonder as a trainer sometimes, where did you get that from? Where did you get that idea from? Where did you get that impression from? Because I know I didn't teach that. I know that's not in the PMBOK guide. Where on earth did that come from? You see, it's a sign that there are too many cooks. By the time you find yourself asking your mentor about strange content, it means you've been probably consuming some content that you shouldn't have, especially when your mentor or your coach is even more confused than you are. Another sign of too many cooks, continuous binging on free mock exams. So these signs, immediately they go off like an alarm bell and tell me this student is at risk. Because I find lots of students listening to the multiple voices of opinion to take this exam, this mock exam, that mock exam, and they're totally clueless at the end of the episode. And as a result of binging on free mocks that are not credible, they end up being confused, they end up being nowhere. Now, if you're still listening up to this point, it tells me you want to learn more, you want to know more, and you don't want to fall into the trap. So good on you for doing that. But I know lots of folks have already turned off because they feel they are not at risk. But if you are still listening, I want to talk about this next point, lack of a definitive overarching approach. So you've heard me in some instances talk about the get good system or some other peculiarities to how I train and what I ask students to do. But when you do not have a definitive overarching approach or strategy, let's call it strategy, when you don't have an overarching strategy, then you likely don't have a methodology, an approach towards the exam content and dogma. You need to have one. And one of the signs to me that someone does not have this overarching approach, which is important, it could be an overarching approach to studying, how to study, when to study, days to study, which of course is every day in my world, or days to hone in on some particular content for those who have my timetable. And it's an adaptable timetable, but at least it's a definitive overarching approach to eating that mass of content a bite at a time. So when people have conflicting ideas, it's a sign. It tells me they don't have a definitive overarching approach. They're confused. It tells me there are too many cooks in the kitchen. By the time they approach the WBS and your friend Phil says the WBS is not a task list, and you listen to a different source that says the WBS is just a group of tasks, you're going to get confused. You're going to have conflicting ideas. The bad is going to weigh down on the good. So all the good stuff you've heard from your friend Phil or whatever that great source is, if you dilute that source, the bad will weigh down on the good. It takes one tiny little bit of bad to dilute all the good. Another misconception that points to a lack of overarching approach is being all over the place, spreading yourself thin and not going deep. You see, it's not about how many books you read. It's about converting words into ideas, the right ideas. It's about converting the words in that book, in the PMBOK guide, in your study guide to pictures, scenarios. That's why the PMP exam is a situational exam. You want to digest all those words, whittle it down, create a picture, know where you're going. This is part of my definitive overarching approach. Part of my definitive overarching approach, if you've been listening to this channel, is to have a mindset that is real world when you approach this content and to create those user scenarios, as I call them, in your head. So it's not about reading. It's not about reading 100 books. It's about reading one book, read a PMBOK guide, read the Project Management Essentials, listen to the Project Management Audio Digest, and go deep and correlate that to your real world. One of the signs that I see in people who are allowing too many cooks into their kitchen is being all over the place but getting nowhere. So I find these folks reading chapters multiple times but feeling lost. They're reading chapter 1 in book A, chapter 1 in book B, chapter 1 in book C. And by the time they are done with that, they feel so lost. They are absolutely nowhere. And I have to be honest with you, this happened to me as I got ready for my exam. As I got ready for my PMP exam, there's a lot of noise about multiple books. So I had made the mistake of buying certain books at the time from eBay. That was while eBay was giving Amazon a good run for its money. But I ended up buying these books. And I remember the first week I opened these additional books to what I was using along with the PMBOK guide, I realized I was all over the place. I was really not getting anywhere. It was a real problem to me. It was so much of a problem that I had to discard what I had purchased. I had to leave it alone. I had to put it to the side. In fact, a few months ago, I was looking at this book and I just couldn't read it. I couldn't even allow myself to read it because those feelings of confusion kept coming back. I was all over the place, but getting nowhere. Reading multiple chapters multiple times and getting lost. So I put it to the side and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did. Another landmark is having a dose of great tests, but then you dilute these tests with weak, lame, or incorrect data. It's part of being all over the place, but getting nowhere. Having great tests and then taking lame tests is only going to make everything lame and weak. See? Another downside of being all over the place and getting nowhere is many times you've got shadowy, nameless faces. So you end up not being able to verify content. You hear this, oh, I don't know where I heard it. I can't remember where I heard it. Or you hear it from a place and they're inaccessible. They cannot verify or validate why they said what they said, how they came to that conclusion. That's one of the downsides about being all over the place. What about the inability to track failure courses? This is the most painful because I've come across a lot of students that have not passed on their first try. And they are not able to track where they went wrong because A lot of times they've been all over the place. Some people say no fail. I know I stuck to one and it went downhill. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. But I found a lot of students to eat in 3 places and not know what they ate and where. So when they fail, they don't know. They've taken random tests by nameless faces, and that yields unknown results. Why did I get this score on the PMP exam or this result? I thought I was doing the right thing. You thought. That's the problem. You need to vet and validate with historical information before you do anything regarding this exam. You see, free for all without source attribution leaves you without a comeback strategy. In other words, if you take so many of these free mock exams, you don't know where they're from, you don't know the truth or the validity or the accuracy in these exams you're taking, there's no source attribution. You don't know who wrote the questions, you don't know the company behind the questions, or this is my favorite, this is my favorite, the company behind the questions is a bogus mock exam mail. Do you know that some companies, and I'm not talking about registered education providers, I'm not talking about PMPs, I'm talking about firms where their main aim is to make money off exam test takers by supposedly putting together mock exams. So there's a name, supposedly, to the company, but you cannot attribute the questions to any PMP or a group of PMPs. Or in some instances, there are some names they put out, but did you check to find out when did that person get certified? How long have they been doing what they've been doing? What company are they affiliated with for real? Are they affiliated with a company? These are just honest questions you have to ask yourself. Check your track record whenever you're dealing with a trainer or firm. I'm just being honest. You have to. The PMP exam is project management professional. So you need a professional to help you, not just by name, but I'm talking about track record, training track record. I give a shout out to all of my colleagues out there who are REPs doing their best to keep it real and to do the best they can. However, there's always going to be pigs in the pantry. Not every training source that puts a label, by the way, of training firm is legit. And not everyone is a good source. So you got to vet and validate. Enough said. I've done my piece. I've tried to inform you of what to do. Last but not least, I call this the CAP syndrome. Cyclical analysis paralysis. You find yourself second guessing yourself, minoring on the major, the question approach confusion. Oh, what should I do in terms of this question or that? This source said X. Now I heard Y. Now you say Z. You shouldn't even be here. The reason why you're having the cyclical analysis paralysis is you're not staying on a credible source. You're all over the place. You're splitting hairs over these so-called questions. And in fact, a lot of these so-called questions, the PMI would never put out questions like they do because the questions are splitting hairs over nothing, over things that are not in the PMP exam content outline. A lot of these mock exams are not based on anything related to the PMP exam content outline. You're wasting time with that. The inability to zone in because of the confusion that has come from the multiple sources is also another indicator of too many cooks in the kitchen, leading to this CAP syndrome. If you found this to be helpful and informative, you might want to check out our courses, www.praizion.com. For those of you who are students already, You know the drill. Stay on the LMS, read the PMBOK guide, expand page 25, blow the lid off page 25, make sure you're able to explain the key outputs and how those become inputs to something else. Put the big picture together. Stay dogged, stay rugged, stay tough. Don't get all namby-pamby over mock exams when you don't do well on them. Understand that the mock exams are a vehicle. That's all they are. It's a vehicle. It's a learning tool for you to get to your destination. So if you don't do well on a mock exam, you need to be doing cartwheels, happy that we found your gaps before the PMI finds them on the PMP exam, so you can close the gaps and so you can ace the test. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I wish you all the best in your PMP exam prep. Take care and bye for now.